Hello and welcome to the Dream Architect Life with Bryan Sweet and Brittany Anderson from Sweet Financial Partners. Bryan, how are you?
Absolutely marvelous today.
I usually talk to Brittany first. I had to go to you. So
I
Brittany,
appreciate that. Yeah, I was kind of feeling a little left out. So now I'm like, my ego is better.
oh, there we go. Because I'm sure you have a very large ego. Come on. I know better than that. Brittany, how are you?
I'm wonderful.
Fantastic. Oh, so you're wonderful this time. I think last podcast we swapped places there.
Oh, that's right. Right.
Yeah.
I can be magnificent again. That's fine.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm excited to be back with you. Last podcast was fantastic, leading to this one, of course. What are you talking about today?
Understanding your value, just how much value you bring to the table and really what you have to offer. And I think a great little segue, Eric, you brought up in the last episode about how, people might feel intimidated by others' success. And Bryan gave the example of the conference that he created with another business partner and how there's advisors in the audience that, on paper might be perceived to have even more success. But what this really goes back to, and the words that kept flashing through my mind as you guys were talking, was the term imposter syndrome.
Mm.
And how a lot of times we can limit our own abilities and really get in our own heads thinking that we're not blank enough, we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we're not capable enough, we're not, insert whatever word to describe it. And that can really be a hindrance on you pursuing what you want for your future. Because if we start telling ourselves these not true narratives about not being capable, not being able to achieve the things, or maybe not even being deserving. Because I think there's some things that come up in people's lives where they think maybe they don't, for whatever reason, deserve the success that they have, which is so untrue. But it's, again, the narrative we tend to tell. So it's really placing value on what you bring to the table. And recently, Bryan and I were meeting with a gentleman, and I was expressing some things that I was kind of getting in my own head about on building out a new platform that Bryan and I are working on. And he said something to me that I think is really interesting. And it's that, people don't necessarily care about, what your exact skill set is or what you have or have not done. What they care about is that you can create shortcuts for them. So if you think about this as it relates to helping people realize possibility, what we do at Sweet Financial in helping people pursue their dreams and take the time to actually think about what's possible, it's creating that shortcut. And when we started thinking about our clients and people we interact with, they provide shortcuts for other people in different capacities, be it through the businesses that they've built, through relationships they've built. So it's this theme that I'm starting to recognize now that people are just looking for ways to shortcut, really to a life of fulfillment and what's meaningful to them. So I think that's a powerful thing to think about, at least.
Bryan, I think that she's on track with something here because
She's always on track with whatever she says. So I nod my head a lot when she's speaking. Yes.
well, and as Brittany, as you were talking, I was thinking about Bryan. Not that I'm not thinking about you, but Bryan, I was thinking about Bryan because of the conference that we talked about last time, right? Bryan, I believe you have a passion for helping people. I believe you have a passion for helping people find those shortcuts. And so I've seen this pattern on multiple things. And last time you spoke about starting that conference because you weren't being fulfilled by the conferences you were going to. And it wasn't you alone. Multiple people, and especially Randy, then you guys had to make that decision to be passionate about doing something different. And you're bringing more value and more shortcuts to the advisors that are attending, just like you're bringing more value and shortcuts to your clientele to get to their better life and their dream life. So I think that anybody who, again, has that mindset and continues to focus on service or that passion can't help but be successful, even if they stumble a few times.
I agree. It's kind of interesting because a lot of times things will happen and people will follow you, not because they believe that it can be done, but they believe that you believe it can be done. And there's a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so much truth to that. And what's the term? Confidence beats competence every day of the week. And I think that's what Bryan's alluding to here, is that when you believe in something wholeheartedly, like, if you're sitting here listening to this, think about something that you have always wanted to do in your life, something that maybe you've done some research around, you've spent some time thinking about how that might show up in your life, be it, maybe it's this once in a lifetime trip you've wanted to take, or some experience you've wanted, or, a house you've wanted to build, or whatever that looks like to you. When you get to talking about it, my bet is that you could talk about it for days on end without getting tired, because it's meaningful to you. And even if, the person you're speaking to has no desire to do the same thing, no desire to take that trip or build that house or do that experience or whatever that looks like, they're just going to be excited because you're excited. And excitement breeds excitement, and energy breeds energy. So I think those are things to, embrace for yourself, that when you're excited about it, people are going to get on board and they're going to get behind you on it. You just exude that.
I like that. I will say that my wife gets excited about projects around the house. We're talking about that off air. I think she needs to be more excited, because I'm still not sold on some of these projects, Brittany. I'm trying to get there. So maybe you can consult me later about how to get more excited about projects around my house.
I've got you.
Okay,
Let's
good.
talk.
Okay. Well, I know that you guys talk a lot about purpose, somebody that you really need to find and feel that you have a purpose. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, we've talked about how, let's just say, a business owner, their whole life, they have devoted their time, their energy, their efforts, their money, their everything to build this business and make it something wonderful. Then they get to this moment in time where they say, okay, I am maybe going to sell, or I'm going to step away, or maybe it gets passed down to next generation, or whatever that looks like. There's all too often a time where they look forward into the future and they're like, what is next for me? I've had this purpose for so long. And if I leave that, then where does my purpose lie? And where does any sort of maybe significance even lie for what my life might contain? So that's where we really encourage people to start thinking about, what does purpose mean to you? What does that next chapter of your life or that next step look like to you? And how can you make it meaningful? And purpose is so much more than just, writing a bunch of words on a chalkboard or a whiteboard and kind of picking a couple things that resonate. It's really getting to the core of where you add value and where that value lies. And I think about this too. So when you're thinking about purpose, and, some people might sit here listening and be like, well, I don't know what special talents I have. My talents have been tied to this my whole life. So what does purpose look like to me? I think about the story that Bryan and I have talked about recently. Harvey Mackay, he is a very famous American businessman and author. So he sent out this story, and it was about a grandfather talking to his grandson. And he said, grandson, I want you to go and sell this watch. Okay. I need you to go do this. And this is very valuable. So I want you to make sure that you do this right. So the grandson goes, and he goes to a pawn shop first, and he comes back to his grandfather and he's like, well, granddad, they said that they would give me $50 for this watch because there's a big old scratch in it. So it's really not worth much. The grandfather's like, okay, well, now I want you to go to this particular antique dealer because, I think that might not be the right price. So the grandson takes it to the antique dealer, and that person says it's actually worth $375,000.
Oh, well, there's a little bit of a difference there.
There's a little bit of a difference there. So the point in Harvey sharing this story, and why we share it with you, is that all too often your value, you can place it in the hands of the wrong person. And what you bring to the table may not be recognized by some of the people that are in your life, which is why aligning yourself with people that can help bring that value out, that can help encourage you to think a little bit different about your future and what purpose you bring to the table. That's why it becomes more than just a good idea. It becomes a necessity when you're looking at fulfillment and purpose.
Great example.
Yeah, absolutely. Bryan, I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but what do you have that can follow that? I mean, that's pretty
well,
powerful.
That's going to be tough because that's a great story. But, I think part of it is exactly what Brittany said is everybody has got lots of value and lots of ideas that they need to fulfill. And part of it is, once again, thinking about things that are important to you, and then making sure you have some commitment to doing it. So I'm just going to show you, talk about a book I just read here recently, and Brittany gave it to me after she had read it. And, if you're a fan of the dream architecture that Brittany and I just wrote, you will absolutely love this book too. It's a book by Ed Milet called The Power of One More. And so if you think about just that title, it's kind of interesting. But in that book, he says sometimes you have to deal with inconvenience. And he talks about this legendary motivator, Ken Blanchard, which if you're an entrepreneur, you probably heard that name. But his statement was, there is a difference between having an interest in doing something and a commitment to doing something. And when you're interested in doing something, you only do it when it's convenient. When you're committed to something, you accept no excuses, only results. So when you talk and think about your dreams and then you want to take some action, don't be just interested, be committed.
That's great food for thought. I mean, that's a powerful statement, and it makes me reflect on times I've been really lazy. Thanks, Bryan. I appreciate that very much.
Sorry, bud.
Yeah, well, but it's a reality check, right? Because that really does draw a line in the sand. What things am I interested in? And I'll tell you right now, guitar, right? I think we've talked about this a little bit. I'm so interested in guitar, but I've done nothing to really put time and effort into it.
Yeah.
And
So you're interested, not committed.
There you go. Absolutely. If I was committed, I'd set a time, half an hour a day, just start learning something. Wow. Okay, man, that's really good. Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
And Eric, I think you give that example, the guitar, and I think about, if something is really important, you will find a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
And I think about my own life, and, I'll just use being a mom to young kids, and, being on this entrepreneurial journey. And there's so many things that I want to accomplish, achieve, and do, and the impact. And it would be really easy, and it is really easy to get in the narrative of being like, well, right now is not the right time, or, oh, I'm too busy for this, or, oh, I've got too many commitments. And it's like, the bottom line is once you identify your value system, not only the value that you bring to the table, but what you believe to be true and what you need to be true in your life, it is amazing at how much you can do. Like, I think about people in my own life who, people that are maybe in a similar situation to myself with their family life, where they've got, a busy husband and, kids that are in different activities and in school and have a million things going on. And, like you, Eric, we've got a remodel project that will never, ever end, and all of those things. And it's like, I get asked that question of, how do you do it all? Or how do you juggle it all? And it's like, well, you kind of don't. You just choose what's most important in the moment. And I think that's where, if people think about their own life, maybe you're listening and you're not at the point, maybe your kids are grown and out of the house, and, you're sitting there going, well, we've got this going on, or I've got this commitment coming up, and I can't focus on myself right now. It's like, well, if you don't do it now, then when are you going to do it? And sometimes it's just that little baby step where Bryan talks about commitment and shares that story, the difference between, what was it?
Being interested and being committed.
Yeah, being interested versus being committed. There's a million things I'm interested in. I mean, my Pinterest board will show you I am interested in a heck of a lot of stuff, but there's very select things that I'm fully committed to. And I think that people can relate to that regardless of what aspect. There's always going to be something. There's always going to be an excuse. There's always going to be a reason that you shouldn't do whatever, insert whatever it is that you think you want to do. It's just deciding what is truly meaningful to you, what's truly impactful, and what's going to make you, again, wake up and get excited about getting out of bed in the morning. That's
Yeah.
the stuff that matters.
Yeah. And if those things are the things that get you excited and you're just interested at this point, but you want them to come true, take that next step and become committed and move something else that isn't moving you forward in your life and put that down the list. And then make sure the people that you're around understand why that's important, when it's important, and will help you and support you to get there. Because that is exceptionally important. Is you need support sometimes. You'll have bad days and it's easy to give up. But if people that really know why you're doing that and what you're doing, and they're there to support you, they're going to be your little cheerleading crowd when the day gets tough, and everybody has them. But the key is to get through it and keep going. And then the magic happens after that. So, all of these things, to stay committed, you need the right people in your life too. And if the people that you're hanging around aren't those, then you might want to, as we've talked about before, might want to upgrade one or two of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Bryan, let me ask you this. I mean, you committed to creating Sweet Financial. I know that was a commitment that you had. Thinking back, was there something else that you had to take and put lower on the priority list? You were prioritizing and committing to Sweet Financial. So what did you have to bump down that list?
A lot of time with friends. I worked a lot of evenings, weekends. I can't say I do that today, but to get it to where I needed to, where I had an amazing team that I can delegate most things to. Sometimes you got to sacrifice like what's most important. And can I go and hang out with some buddies, down the road? The answer is yes. Can I take this opportunity that's in front of me and spend the time on it now? Well, if you want to succeed, you need to do that. And so it's your, whatever your priorities or what your values are, and then staying committed to it, and good things happen.
Well, I think that's a beautiful reflection of what you do with your clients, right? Because there's some sacrifices that everybody has to make to then ensure later on down the road they have that freedom to be able to do the things that they want to do then. So now you've built your business, you've got that great team, you can spend more time with friends, family in a different capacity because you've built more of this legacy. So I think that that's a great reflection of those things.
Yeah. And I will tell you, one of the amazing things is a lot of my best friends originally were just clients. And since I was able to spend some time with them, now we can do fun things together just because I've gotten to know them better. Yeah. And there's a lot of things that we share and interests and whatnot. And that's kind of a nice side benefit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, it's Brittany here for a little tiny interruption. Bryan and I have some really exciting news, and that is that our newest book, Dream Architecture, is officially launched. It is live. We have been working for a really long time to bring you quality content. This is all centered around really similar topics to what we talk about on the podcast here, but we're going even deeper. We're looking at where money and mindset meet so that you can focus on a life filled with possibility, a life filled with abundance, and one that creates true fulfillment for your future. So be sure to grab a copy. You can download it if you've got a reader, if you've got a Kindle. You can get your physical copy. Go to Amazon.com and look up Dream Architecture by yours truly, Brittany Anderson, and the wonderful Mr. Bryan Sweet. We look forward to hearing your commentary and your feedback, and really hope this can help you continue your focus on possibility. Now we'll get right back into the episode.
Brittany, what else are we talking about in today's podcast?
Yeah, as you guys are talking through this, I kept thinking about the book by Randy Zuckerberg. So it's called Pick 3. This is Mark Zuckerberg's sister, and Bryan and I were very fortunate to see her speak at a Genius Network event. Yeah, awesome gal. But she's known as Mark Zuckerberg's sister because of that name, but she's accomplished so many wonderful things on her own. And, she has this whole thought process where you kind of break life down into a handful of different segments. It's your work, it's your family, your faith, your extracurriculars or time with friends, your exercise, your health, et cetera, and so forth. And her whole thought process around this is that you can't do everything and pack it all into a single day, even a single month sometimes. But what you can do is prioritize a few key things. That's why it's called pick 3. So there might be times in your life where you are full on dedicated to your health. Maybe you're working out like crazy more than a few days on the treadmill, Eric, like we've joked about before, but you're working out like crazy and you're making great choices for your food and what you're nourishing your body with. And maybe during that same time, you're focused on growing your business. And the third is you're dedicating all your time that is not in those 2 things to your kids, your spouse, whatever. So again, I think when people start to get overwhelmed and they don't pursue possibility and they don't think about what their ideal dream life looks like, it's when they're trying to do too much. And so I think that there's a little bit of a misconception that you have to give up everything else in your life to accomplish anything great. And I don't believe that to be true. What I believe to be true is that you just have to be selective. And you have to make sure that you don't stay in the 3 that you're picking, to use Randy's language, to stay in the 3 that you're picking for too terribly long, because then you do risk that loss. And that's where I think people can maybe give up too soon, is when they feel like they're losing something. But instead, if you're realigning your values and you're choosing what's meaningful, then you don't feel that sense of sacrifice. You actually feel fulfillment and you see the growth that you make. So I think that's something to kind of pull out, that, yeah, success, it takes nights and weekends and lots of work, because there's no such thing as an overnight success.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, there's ways that you can absolutely lead a fulfilled life.
Yeah. Well, I that paints a beautiful picture, and it goes hand in hand with Bryan, what you said. I think one of the key pieces is being able to communicate that, right? Because you said you had to tell your friends and family at that point, I'm going to be working longer hours, or I'm going to be putting more into this. This is one of my dreams. And you're going to see those people rise up. They're going to be like, yes, let's support you in that. There'll probably be others that are like, oh, okay, we understand, but they're not going to, assist you in it. They're just going to be there. But at least they know, you're not blowing them off. You're not ignoring them. It's not that you've broken off relationships. It's just that, okay, I understand that Bryan's got to focus on A, B, and C right now. So I think that any of that, all that combined makes it much easier. So if you are focused on those 3, the other people know, those other areas know, they're not gone for good. They're just having to dedicate a little bit more time during this particular season.
Yeah. And the other thing is, if you explain that, which is really good, communication is really good. So people know, what's going on and why. But if you talk to your friends and family and they don't help you and buy in, and they, are being selfish and they want your time, that might be some indication that might be one of the people you need to upgrade, because all the true people that are here on earth to help you get better are going to be encouragers, or at least understand why you're doing it. And if it's important to you, they should be a resource to help you get there, or at least not hinder you to get there.
Yeah. And I think too, I mean, Bryan, you made me think of a point when you're thinking about the people in your life and like encouragement and all of those different things. I think there's a point to bring out here, and that when Bryan talks about, a project that he's working on or something that he's pursuing, it's because if people literally sit there and take a step back and say, well, Bryan said he's going to do it, he does it. So I think that's where people start to lack support, when you're wordsmithing. Like if you're talking about all these great things you're going to do in your life and you don't take action on anything, people stop listening and they kind of tune out. Whereas if you're actually moving forward on the things that you're talking about all the time, people are like, whoa, Bryan said he was going to do that, and he's actually doing it. And I'll give this one example. So I've mentioned before about this platform that Bryan and I are working on, and how we're going to bring this to the table. So our trademark process and what we talk about here, what the podcast is named after, it's the Dream Architect. It's been our process at Sweet Financial. Bryan has had a vision to say, like, this is bigger. It's bigger than just what it is here. And we can bring even more to people. We can create even better, lives for people that have already achieved success, that have already, accumulated wealth. There's more to it. And we had a little bit of a gut check moment at a recent team meeting where the team basically said, like, okay, you guys keep talking about this. Like, what is it exactly? And we sat back and we're like, Great question. We don't know yet. We just know it's going to be something. So we went and did a couple-day intensive with a gentleman that helps build platforms like this out, helps people get clarity on what they're trying to do. And now we know that we're creating this very immersive experience where we select certain individuals, invite them to come along with us a few times a year to really cool locations. And we go deep on 5 pillars. Obviously, you've got wealth because that's the core of who we are, what we do, but you've also got purpose and health and longevity and legacy and experiences and delivering all of the stuff that people want and are hungry for, but they don't even know it's out there. They don't know what exists. They just know they need something. So when we look at this, it's one of those things where we're pushed on a challenge. We're said, hey, get clear on this because we don't know what you're talking about. So that's what we did is we went and we got clarity. And now we have an actual true breathing thing that's going to happen in 2023. So again, it's about taking action, and we don't know, maybe it's going to fail. Maybe it's going to be absolutely horrible and it'll flop. I don't think that's going to happen, but we just know we're betting on ourselves and we're taking action. We're betting on the people that are going to be there too, to go through it with us. And that's what this life is about. It's about taking chances, adding value, creating impact, and building a life that you are, again, I've said this a million times, but excited to wake up to and excited to just, contribute in a bigger way.
Here's the worst case scenario if this doesn't pan out, Brittany. We're meeting some amazingly cool people that we would have never otherwise met. And just opportunities that are coming out of that, aside from building the immersive platform, is just unbelievable. So, when you start on something that you have a vision on, just the byproducts that come out of it is just unbelievable. And so we've met some amazing people that are introducing us to amazing people, and people that you read about and hear about are getting to be people we know and friends. And it's like, ooh, it's kind of scary, but it's really fun and exciting, and just makes it, want to do more of it.
Yeah. And like you said, the other thing, worst case scenario, is a great location and 38 extra pounds. Right? I mean, it's okay.
And, if you lose a few to begin with, and it doesn't count that bad.
There's always a treadmill, right? Okay.
That's right.
That's right. Comes back to the treadmill. Well, Brittany, can you give us a quick preview of what the next podcast is? I know we're going to wrap this one up, but just give the audience a little hint of what we're going to talk about next time.
Yes. So we are going to talk about what it means to know your worth. So we spent some time thinking about values and dreaming big and what that might look like, and going through some of the tough stuff to get to the other side, understanding where your value lies. But now we're going to go a little bit deeper into worth, because it is different than value.
All right. Well, I'm very, very excited. Thank you both so much again for the time and the conversation, and reminding me of a few things that I needed to hear today.
Awesome. We're glad.
All
now
right.
take action, Eric.
Okay.
Get committed, Eric. Come on.
All right. My wife's been trying to get me committed for a long time. So well, that's another podcast altogether. Anyway, thank you both. And of course, our last thank you goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Dream Architect Life podcast with Brian Sweet and Brittany Anderson. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Brian and Brittany come out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. And we humbly ask that you share this podcast and rate it and leave a review, because this will definitely help others find the show. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at Sweet Financial Partners, this is Eric Johnson reminding you that possibility comes to those who create it. And we'll see you next time.